Hi, this is part 3 of my tutorial to make a board game insert. Last episode we made up to here on the insert, so we measured out the edges. We've got the two other edges over here we have yet to stick on. That's going to be one of the last things we do. We measured out all the individual compartments, or kind of eyeballed it and figured out exactly how big they should be, and that now means the cards are in place. There's a little bit of wiggle, but nothing too much, and it just means the cards are where they should be, and organised slightly better than they were, where they just sit in the box loose. Now, this episode I'm going to be making as much as I can. I'm going to make these episodes about half an hour each, hopefully. I'm going to be measuring, you might be able to see I've drawn some lines across here, and that's where I'm going to be putting in the next couple of dividers. I've measured these out in advance, and I've also marked them up on this board up the top here, and I've got two pieces I'm going to cut out. They are going to be the same height as the outsides, which is 5.2 centimeters, and this one is going to be 16 centimeters. This one across here is going to be 17.8. So I've just got those pieces at the top here, and I'm going to get on with cutting those. So just so you remember, you've got to make sure you're cutting from whichever side's best for you. If you're left-handed, cut from the right-hand side to the left. If you're right-handed, cut from the left side to the right. So just helps. It should kind of help mean you're cutting things about right. So I'm just going to cut the left-hand one of these out first. No, I'm going to cut them both out in one go. So I'm just going to put my ruler on the line, hold it down nice and firm, and start cutting that line. And you've got to do it in small stages just so you don't end up making any mistakes. And there you go, that's gone through. Move along the line. Ideally you'd have a longer ruler, but then it might be quite difficult to work with. So get whatever you feel like doing, or both. They are only like a couple of pounds each. There you go. So that piece is now detached. I'll try and cut this more kind of appropriately. So I'm just going to cut along this line here. Okay, now we have this piece detached, along with this piece. Just stick that over here. And I'll cut along this line. Put the knife away. So now I've got the 16 centimeters and the other piece. So I'll just get those in place so we can see what they're going to look like and make sure they're about right. We have the short piece and the end piece. Now, get my chair. Now I'm going to glue, if you remember, if you've watched this video, you have to glue from the inside out. You don't want to box yourself in. So if I glue this piece in first, then this piece is going to be very difficult to get in between it. So this piece is going to fit nicely in here, and it needs gluing along one edge here and one edge here. So turn my hot melt glue gun on, and I can wait for that to heat up. Once that's heated up, I can glue this piece in, and I can glue this piece in. Now, all I've done to mark this out is I got the pieces, so I got all the characters, put them in here, and I just squished them into a corner until they were roughly as compacted as I kind of wanted. I didn't want them so they're bulging at the top. I did notice there's more zombies, but I'm just showing you these guys for example. But I want it so I can put this together and there'll be enough space for them to all fit in there comfortably without being squished. And there's obviously going to be space the other side, so you can have your two different, you can have your people and your zombies in separate compartments. And another glue stick, so that's my third glue stick I believe. And Yeah, so I just measured this out again by eye. You can follow my measurements, which I have kind of been reading my measurements out. So again, piece of glue along this edge. Not too much, but you want to make sure you've got enough to stick it in well, and make sure it's vertical. You can make sure it's vertical by kind of putting in another piece along one edge, and it should help you basically angle that properly, like that. Now I'm going to stick this last piece in across here, and this needs a tiny bit of glue up here, like that, and then this piece needs some glue along one edge here. And along the bottom of this. And this should squish in here, and I'll just slide that into place. And remember to try and force things together a bit. If you force it together, it will just join a bit flatter, because if you don't, the hot melt glue will kind of separate the edge, whereas if you push them really flat, there won't be a gap. If you don't, the glue will sit in between. So it's worth just kind of squishing stuff together. So I can now stick my characters in one side, there, and if I find my other piece, which I think I knocked off over here. This piece will be going along here. We'll then have all the rombies over here. And that fits perfectly. I probably could have squished them together a lot more really, but I think that's fine for the moment. These ones for a moment. So that seems to have gone together really, really well. So next I'm going to be making the little piece here that's going to be a little box that can store all the other bits and pieces that are all these ones I mentioned. So I'll just get onto that in a second. I'm going to be making this piece internal, that is like a removable piece. I can actually finish putting on this edge and the bottom edge, so I'm just going to do that now. So this edge, I will need a slight bit of glue on this end, so get that done now. I can then put this piece on. Now to do this bit, it's slightly different. You need to put a couple of little beads of glue down these edges. Like that. And one long one across the bottom of this. And stick all this together. Now the reason I've done this, even though I told you never to box everything in, is because it's more important to get this internal measurement right. So now, all the zombies can go in, and because they're all fitted in nicely, and I've got this piece left, and this is all going to be one piece. It basically means everything should just go, well, once this piece is a removable piece, it doesn't actually matter because this is a separate piece. So it's a bit like having a pre-made box here. So this piece will now fit inside here, and everything else will just sit on top. And the only last step is to go and put these tokens in little compartments, and then all of these pieces should just sit flush on top like that. Should be great. So I've just marked out the bottom piece, which is going to be the size of this gap, and that's going to drop down in there hopefully and be completely snug with maybe about 1 millimeter of space around it. I don't want it to be really big, or really loose, sorry. So I'm just going to cut this piece out, and this is, look at my notes, it was 17.6 by 10.9. So I basically just took the previous measurements of the gaps and reduced them in size slightly. Continue cut along this line. There we go. Glue guns falling over. I'm just going to remove that piece. Don't really need it. Move this piece out of the way. And I need to cut off this wonky bit that's I just tried to fit something in. So cut that bit off. And now if I cross my fingers, because I'm unable to measure the bottom space. Perfect. I'm unable to measure the bottom space. I was only able to measure the top, and assuming everything's right angle, it would be fine. But what I might have found is that the bottom is maybe a couple of millimeters shorter than the top, so the box is shaped a bit like that from top to bottom, meaning this piece wouldn't fit. But it seems to fit perfectly, so now we can work from that. We can move the rest of the board out of the way, or the box out of the way. And we can start measuring up this. So the sides of this are going to be 17.6, and we want this to be the same height, do we? Or do we want it slightly shorter? I think what we're going to do is have this about 3 centimeters high. So we're going to cut from here we're going to measure a 3 centimeter high piece, and we're basically going to cut the whole of this off. Now I am just kind of picking a random measurement of 3 centimeters, and the reason for that is that this box doesn't need to be tall, it just needs to be able to be the right size to fit in a couple of tokens, so it doesn't matter if it's not exactly the right height to fit in this. So hold my ruler down. Move the big piece out of the way, as always. Right, so now I need 17.6. Use a pencil. 17.6 and 17.6. And I can then just cut that. And get one piece, and that should be the same length as this, which it is, so that's good. Now I've got that piece done. I now need another one the same, and I then need the 2 sides. So I'll measure another one the same as that, which oddly enough, oops, almost exactly this. I just need to cut off about a millimetre or two. So that was very, very lucky. So now I've got those two edges. So I've got my two edges that go here and here. So now I just need these edges minus 1 centimetre. So that is 10.9. So that's going to be 9.9. So I'm just going to get this piece, and I'm going to measure another 3 centimetre piece. So we needed 9.9 and we need 2 of them. So we'll measure 9.9. Try not to drop it. There is one of the pieces. I'll just do a test fit just in case, just to make sure it's good. Yep, that's perfect. And it needs to be 9.9 again. Flip it around, measure it up again. Just cut these 2 pieces, and I've got my 2 edges which are going to go along there. Now on top of that I'm going to need some dividers as well. I'm going to need 6 compartments. So I basically need to measure up things. Now what I'm going to do is cut the inside pieces. So the inside pieces are going to be 1 big long cross piece and 4 shorter pieces. Now I've got this piece which is a scrap, and this is 3 centimetres currently. So I'm just going to move these pieces to the side for the moment. And I've got another scrap over here that is 5 centimetres, so this piece can be split directly down the middle, and that should be long enough for my crossbeam, which it is. So I'm just going to get my pencil, which is hiding, and I'll just divide this in half. Well, I'm not going to divide it in half, I'm going to divide it into exactly 2.5 millimetres and then cut that piece off. So I'm just going to cut along the 2.5 centimetres, sorry, I keep saying millimetres instead of centimetres, I'm sorry for that. Okay, so this piece isn't necessarily, this is about 2.4. It might be forgivable, but it's just a little bit too small. You might be able to see there. So this piece wasn't perfectly cut, so I now have this other spare piece. But I have one piece that's 2.5, and this needs to be cut to the length of this internal kind of distance, which is 16.6. So I'll measure this out at 16.6. mark that with a pencil. And then cut along that, so that should be perfect size. I'm also going to just line this up with my cutting mat and cut perfectly along a straight angle, just so I can make sure I'm getting it right. If you basically line up your piece that you're cutting, and you want to cut right angles, that is, you can line up one piece vertically, and then as long as your ruler is lined up with the lines going across, you know that you're cutting at a 90-degree angle. So this piece is now going to be fitting along here, along the centre of this. So now, as well as that, I now need four other pieces that are going to be shorter. They're going to be about that long, and I'll just measure that up now. And this is going to be the piece I'll probably use for that. So I'll retrieve that scrap as well, because I can probably scavenge something from that. And I'll measure up how big this needs to be. So this is 4.6. So get my pieces out of the way so I'm not accidentally using the wrong piece. So that's 4.6. My 4 pieces. I'm going to glue in one of the sides first. So I think I'm going to glue one of these sides on first. Just get my glue gun on. Yeah, so I'm going to put this side on, and then I can glue this piece up against that, and that should be kind of safe. I can then put all of these pieces in on that, and then I should be able to very easily put these edges sandwiched against it. That should be fine. Fingers crossed. But we just need to wait for the glue gun to warm up, which shouldn't take too long. Now, once I've done this, I will need a piece that's slightly smaller. So what I can actually do in advance is get ready for cutting that piece out that's going to be the lid. So all I can do is I can measure up this, which is 17.7? 17.7, yeah, about that. And if I take away 1 centimetre from that, so the lid is going to be 16.7, and that's going to be 10.9, so 9.9. So it's basically the same measurements as above, but minus a centimetre. So the base was 17.6, but for some reason I've measured it and it seems to be 17 point. Well, it seems to be 17 points. No, it's 17.6. I'll make that 0.6 then. So 16.6. So I'm basically making something the same width as that and the same length as this. which should mean it fits in on top, because these edges are 3 centimeters and the center is 1/2 centimeter, so all the mid sections, which means there's going to be a 1/2 centimeter lip, which means a lid will fit perfectly in that gap, and that should be fun. Should. Fingers crossed, as always. Okay. Check my glue gun. So I noticed after I'd filmed the rest of this, I had a little break, and I noticed my glue gun completely drained all its hot glue out, all over this tray. There's just one big pile over here where it's just melted all the glue, which is a bit of a shame. But we're just waiting on the glue gun for the moment. So I've measured out that piece. I can start actually measuring this properly. Well, I'm not measuring it, but I can cut this piece out for the lid. I'll knife to the side for the moment. My base. Get my board. So I'll measure it on this side. So that's 17.6. No, it's not. Make sure I'm doing this all right. It's 16.6. Which is here, and that is 9 by 9.9. So this piece should be 16.6, which it is. And I should be able to get my knife out and just cut this piece out super quick. And maybe my glue gun will have heated up. I think it is heated up. It just needs to warm the glue slightly more. Okay. And hopefully that will be our last piece, although it will not, because we need a little piece to lift. So I'm probably going to get a small piece like this to have as a little kind of removable notch. So I'm just going to measure out 2 centimeters. Actually, we could do this rough. I can just use the grid as my measurements because this isn't a size specific piece. So I'm just measuring a roughly 2 by 2. And hopefully I haven't just done what I did before and cut something really important up. I'll just cut up this internal piece. But the rest of the game is looking fantastic at the moment. And the only thing I haven't sorted yet is the dice. The dice and some of the other tokens, the first player tokens. I'm not really sure what to do about that at the moment. This tray should fill up most of this space. So I can either just keep them here, which is what I'm doing at the moment, or I could put them on top of where this tray is going to be. There you go. So I've got this, and to measure this up, what I'm going to do is just measure how long this is. So it's 16.6. So 16.6 divided by 2 is 8.3. And measure the same the other side. And I'm not going to mark this up completely, I'm just going to put a little line in the middle, like that. And I'm then going to do the same this side, so that's 9.9, so it's basically just under 5. And this one is the same, it's just under 5. Ooh, didn't mean to do that. And I can do my cross again. So I've now got a little cross where I can attach this, and I know it will be in the centre. And that's just something that I can hold on to and lift. So try to extend these lines out a bit so I can see. So if I put that on there, that should be perfect. So I'll just test my hot glue on this piece. I'll just put a little smidgen of glue on this. And hold that down quite firm. If you don't hold it down firmly, it won't create quite a strong connection. But that's now solid. So that's going to be our lid that sits on top of everything else. Now the glue gun's all done and working, I can start actually gluing everything together properly. So I said I was going to start with one of the sides, so I will. I'll put a line of glue along the bottom of one piece. I'm kind of eyeballing the 90 degrees. And that should be fine. Yep. Okay, so now I want this cross piece, which is going to go along here. So this needs glue along one side and the bottom. So one side here and along the bottom. And it's quite important to try and get this lined up really well, because otherwise, especially with something like this, you'll end up with a kind of wonky cut. That's a very wonky cut, a wonky kind of glue patch. You'll end up with glue that's kind of all over the place. I'm just going to quickly use the knife to scrape some of this glue out, because I've noticed there's quite a lot of glue that's kind of just sticking out from this piece. I can just scrape away a little bit of that before it builds up. A bit of it. Okay, so I've glued that piece on. Now I can glue the 4 pieces that go on these sides, and this is just going to be a small piece of glue. I might need another glue stick, so I'm just going to get one ready. I'll need it in a second, probably after this piece. A little bit of glue. And I should be able to just put this in, hold it down, make sure it's upright. It really helps having everything marked out on the bottom piece, because it basically just gives me a grid that I can follow that is a lot nicer than having to just measure when you're going. So I can just put these pieces in very, very easily without having to really think, because I know lined up with the grid. Not with the grid, but with the... lined up with the kind of laid out pattern that I've already got written, kind of laid down. Okay, so I can now put in these pieces. Not sure my glue's still got glue left. The worst thing you can the worst problem you can run into is running out of a glue stick halfway through the glue application. So when you're sticking all the glue in place, or when you're laying the glue on the piece and you run out of glue stick, you then got to stop fiddling around putting another glue stick in. So it's always worth trying to avoid ever having that situation. So I've got one piece left for the dividers. So that's done. Now glue on that piece and along the bottom of my edge piece. Make sure both of those are pressed together so they glue down properly. And that is good. Now I just need to stick these edges on. So I can have glue along these 4 pieces and then on the bottom of this. For this I'm definitely going to need another glue stick in it, so I'll just get that all done. And all done little careful, so I'll get the pieces ready to go. And one more piece on here. Try and work quickly, but be careful you don't work too quickly with mistakes. Some mistakes are avoidable, others very, very permanent. Generally, if you do something that is a bit common, or if you do something wrong, that is a bit common. But that's fine, that fits perfectly. This lid should now fit really snugly in there. And that's looking good. So I've just got this last piece, and then I think I should be done. And on at one edge, squish it down as firmly as I can. Hold it all together. Just make sure it's all tightly gluing. And this one has squirted all over the place a little bit, so I'm just going to quickly try and remove some of that. I don't recommend touching the glue immediately when it's like just come out of the glue gun, because it is very, very hot. But as soon as it's been like 5 seconds of it being stuck to something, it's usually fine. Now I've finished putting everything away, so I can finally get rid of all these annoying little bags of pieces that are just annoying. And put everything away. So I was going to have one for the one for the helpless survivors and one for the extra zombie pieces. Like that. I have one for each of these ones. So I've got the noise tokens, track aids. And then I decided all the food would go in one, since there isn't much. There's only about 5, I think, of the starvation tokens. What is that, 4? No, there's 5. There's 6, sorry. There's 6 starvation tokens, so I didn't think it was really worth having an extra compartment purely for 6 tokens. So they can just mix in with those food ones. With just a little bit of fiddling, there you go. They're not going anywhere. So there you go, that's perfect. Let's just shave off 2 tiny slivers of that. Now I have all of these to put whatever I want in or to chuck in the bin and be glad that I've got rid of them. But before I do that, I'll make sure everything's as it should be. This box, which the lid is snug, it doesn't fall out, but it doesn't go back in with a ridiculous amount of ease. But once it's in, it's fine. This box drops in, you can pull the lid off, you can then pull it out and do whatever you want with it. And that's fantastic. And that fits in there snugly. I have all these bags I don't need. Everything else can just sit on top, so I can put the board on top with all of these pieces. And bags I don't need. Take it out of its lid. And my intention was to create a box that would fit exactly inside of the original box without bulging, but fit everything nice and neatly. And I can. That was the satisfying slide down of the lid, and that fits perfectly snugly. You can see from the side, everything fits fine. I'm pretty confident I can shake it and then take the lid off, and everything's still in place. It's great. That's exactly what I wanted, and I've done exactly what I needed. The total cost of the materials was just about half an A1 sheet, so I got those for about £2.50 each. So that's £1.25. I present to you £1.25 of board game happiness that will make my life infinitely better. Maybe a bit of an overreaction, but I'm just really pleased it's worked out so well. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching this very, very long series that's taken up many days of your life. And it was thoroughly enjoyable making it. I will make more, maybe not quite as thorough as this, because I realise this is now going to have about 3 hours of footage, which is quite a lot. But thank you very much for watching again. Hopefully see you in another video where I'm doing something like this or something completely different. But thank you for coming along on the journey of making this board game insert. And I'll now finish with some nice shots of the board game insert with my nice DSLR. So thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.